Hey guys, let's talk about tonight's episode of The Walking Dead. And I really enjoyed this episode. It wasn't crazy full of zombies. It wasn't crazy full of deaths and murderous scenes, but it did give us a great deal of information and insight into our group as they arrived at Alexandria. So we all know from last week's episode that Rick was very cautious about going to this new location, and they met Aaron from the episode before, and he convinced them to come to an audition or something for this new neighborhood. And this neighborhood is called Alexandria. So in today's episode, they finally arrive, and it's almost like you're walking into Pleasantville or something, or you're just walking into like this very pristine neighborhood and you guys have been street urchins for the last year and a half, right? So everyone's really dirty and really, unkept for the most part because they've been living literally on the streets. And now they've arrived in this neighborhood and they get to have their own home. And the group has to, pretty much Rick has to decide if they're going to stay there. So we meet Deanna, who is pretty much like, I guess you call her the mayor of Alexandria. And she was like a congresswoman in her previous life. And she's interviewing Rick. And, in this interview, Rick is pretty much telling her, you shouldn't open your doors to people because people will find your weaknesses. They will take what you have. They will find a way to overtake you and you'll be left with nothing. And I found that very interesting that they would have him say that. They would repeat it later on in the episode, and then we would end the episode the way it does. And I personally was cheering on my couch when Rick said what he said, and I'll get to that at the end. But yes, as quiet as this episode was, I think it spoke volumes. So of course, everyone's trying to figure out this new location. Daryl is not having any of it. Michonne is a little cautious, but yet she is hopeful that this is the new home. This is going to be their new home, and Deanna has given jobs to everybody, and Michonne is yet to get one. And one night, I thought it was very interesting, of course, that Rick could not fall asleep in this new wonderful home. He has woken up every night and he's, gone into the kitchen, he's pulled out knives, he's just got this uneasy, unsettling feeling about this new place. And one night he wakes up, or he's already awake, and Michonne wakes up, and she says to him, Deanna hasn't given me a job yet. And he's like, I feel like once she does, it's like assigning papers that we're agreeing to stay here. And they have a really great conversation because they're both, sort of wondering, should they stay? Should they not stay? And then Rick ends the conversation by saying, if we both feel like we could stay here, then why are we both awake? And, he touches her on the shoulder and he says, I'm going for a walk. And again, it's sort of like they want to trust it, but they don't, and they can't. But ultimately, they do. So, of course, it comes, this show, what I love about it is, once again, like it's less about the walkers and more about the human beings and how you interact with people and who you've become, mostly who you've become. And we all know that after being, at Woodbury and going to Terminus and thinking you were in places that could become shelter and a new home, and quickly finding out that they were not, you're obviously going to have your guard up. And there were a lot of great moments in this episode where I think that deep down, these guys are just survivors now. They're not going to be these people that can just come to a new neighborhood and settle in. And I love that conversation that Rick has with his son, Carl. And he says, Carl's like, how do you like this place? And he's like, yeah, I guess so. And then he's like, yeah, but these people here are soft, and I don't want us to become soft. And I thought that was a really great conversation. And then later on, we see them go over the fence and they're walking through the woods, and they sort of have this great father-son bonding moment where they do some hand-to-hand combat with the walkers. And I thought it was another great moment where it's sort of proving they're not going to become soft, because they can always cross over, through the walls, and they can get down dirty with the walkers and still survive. Thought it was very interesting that when Rick went back to get the gun out of that little container, it was gone. So of course, once again, that raises a red flag to Rick. And then, of course, we also had Deanna's son take out Glenn and some of the others to go on a little, I guess, pre-hunt trial. And of course, these guys are idiots. Like, they don't know what they're doing. They're stringing up walkers because they've killed one of their own or three of their own in the past. And they're basically just putting each other in harm's way. And Glenn calls them out on that. And I like that scene because it's like, he's trying to be like, when you're out here with me, it's my way or the highway. And it's like, dude, we've been surviving for over a year and a half on our own. You need to step down. So I like that Glenn put him in his place. And then I like that his mom put her son in his place. And that was the end of that conversation. So we also, of course, got to meet some other members of this community. And Carl got to meet a girl who was also out on the streets and has, I guess, only been in this new Alexandria place for a couple months. So you can tell that she all as well likes to go over the fence and be one with the walkers, I guess. It's almost like, what's that saying? When you've been held captive and then you become friendly with your captors, it's sort of like you've become so familiar with these walkers that you want to get back over there and become one with them again, because if you don't, it's like a piece of you is missing. And I think that moment when Rick goes into the house and he shaves his beard and you see him. I mean, we haven't seen Rick clean shaven since like season 1, pretty much. And, that beard has become such a part of him. I forgot what he looked like. And it's like his coat of armor. And he, taking away those layers is almost a way of taking away some of what he's leaving behind. But then at the end of the day, them going back out there, killing these walkers, it's sort of like saying, we're beyond this wall, but we're not beyond the wall, if you know what I mean. So I just I really liked how we saw our people, this family that they've become, react to this new world that they've all been hoping for, but yet they're so guarded. And I thought it was another great scene when, they basically have been given 2 homes side by side. And they're like $1 million homes, and they're all decked out, and they've got like marble countertops and great shower heads and everything's perfect. And yet they all choose to stay in one room for the first couple nights because, again, you just can't trust who these people are. It was almost like that moment when they were all in the barn together and then they have to work together when the walkers start attacking them. You just don't know what these humans are going to do to them because they've been through the ringer so many times. So when Deanna comes to check on them and she sees that they're all together, it's like, yeah, they're a family. They're not going to let anybody be on their own right now because they just can't trust who these people are. So I thought that was another really great scene. And then we were introduced to this new girl. I believe her name is Jessie, and she's got 2 sons and a husband who obviously looks like he's a bit of a douche. And we only see a glimpse of him in the shadows as he's sitting on the porch, and Rick is walking through the community at night, and he says, "Oh, you're Rick, right?" And he's like smoking, and he's like, "Yeah, my wife gave you a haircut." And it's like, okay, this guy doesn't seem to be too jolly. So clearly he's going to be number 1 and 2 on the hit list. I think number 2 is Deanna's son because he's not much better. But again, these guys have been in this cushy little lifestyle for quite a while now. And these guys are literally coming from the streets. And they're going to have to figure out a way to work with, not only the people at Alexandria are going to have to figure out a way to work with Rick and his group, but they're going to have to figure out a way. And I love that scene. Okay, so we also, we see Carol getting all dressed up in her little Martha Stewart outfit, and she's gone off to cook meals for the older people. And Daryl has a good chuckle with her. He's like, "You look ridiculous in that outfit." And I love that Daryl was just like, when Deanna's asking the question, she's like, do you want to be here? And he's like, well, I guess the kid and the baby need a roof over their head, so I guess. And then, right before they get in there, Rick or Daryl shoots like some little animal on the side of the street, and he brings it in, and he's like, stripping it on the porch. Like, it's just like, you can't take the ghetto out of the kid, right? It's like he's a street kid now, right? And he's been that way from time. So, with him coming in, he's like, I got dinner. It was hilarious because they're not just going to change their ways, right? So I thought that was hilarious. And Daryl, again, is like casing the joint. Like, he's looking at the whole room, and he's got his guard up, and everybody should. So I'm liking that they're there, but they are not going to let what happened to them at Terminus happen again. So, of course, that brings me to the final scene of the episode. And Rick is talking to Daryl and Carol, and she's just like, look, I don't want to stay here and get soft. And then Rick says, you know what? Carl said the same thing, but I don't think we're going to be soft. I think we're going to be just fine. I think we're going to make this our home. And they're going to have to basically fall in line with us. And if they don't, then we're going to take this place. And I was like, yes, that's right. I'm like, Rick is a changed man, okay? There is no way he is going to let anybody dictate what he does. And so he is going to be the ruler of that kingdom. So Deanna put him in charge of being a cop again, like a constable. So Rick and Michonne are going to be patrolling the neighborhood, and they're going to be the police, I guess. And so he's in a very authoritative position. So that is going to, of course, speak volumes, I'm sure, moving forward. So even though, like I said at the beginning, it wasn't, full of zombies and it wasn't full of all that, we still got a lot of drama, I think, with how Rick was behaving, because you just didn't know how Rick was going to carry on. Like, he was, not sleeping. He was pacing. Like, he just could tell he could go off at any moment. Like, there was that scene when he was walking through the neighborhood, and then he lost track of Carl and the baby, and he went running down the road, and then he knocks into Jesse's stuff, and he's just like, where did they go? And he is just on guard, and he's ready for just about anything. So I thought this was a very powerful episode, and I can't wait to see what happens. Are they going to turn into the people who used to rule Terminus? Are they going to turn into the governor? And you know what I mean? Like, it's just going to be interesting because they've always been the good guys. And are they ultimately going to turn, like the video said, like Rick was saying in his testimonial, that you can't let your doors open. You can't let your guard down because people will find your weakness and they will take it from you. So it's going to be crazy. I'm excited. I am really excited. So yeah, that's it for me, guys. Let me know what you thought of this week's episode, and I will see you next week. Bye.